So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are privileged to have Claire here uh, with us. And for the benefit of those who are not part of the coaching journey community, we are a community of coaches who are at different stages of coaching journey. The community supports the coaches through various initiatives like peer coaching, coaching pods, coaching conversations, various learning events, pro bono mentoring, etc. Um, and many other events for community engagement. And so before I give the introduction of Claire, I wanted to thank few people who made this event possible. And first is Yashasni, who coordinated on behalf of um, coaching journey, and Shankar, who connected us with Claire, and I must say my friend who introduced me to Claire's work in 2022, and that's how I came to know about her. And yeah, so a little bit about Claire. Uh, Claire, as she says, she's a human who facilitates other people's thinking. She has been very old in the coaching space, and she has been coaching for almost 35 years. She has been a master coach and a coaching supervisor with over 15,000 hours of experience. And she's an author of the book Simplifying Coaching. That's what I was introduced to in 2022, and the podcast, which is the Coaching in podcast. And then she's recently written the book, The Human Behind the Coach. She established 3D coaching in 1990 to bring together the simplest and best learning from coaching to support people in organizations to have more effective communications with an edge. So Claire believes in coaching, that coaching is simple and it takes time to learn to work that simply. And I think perhaps that is the reason why she named the book Simplifying Coaching with 3 basic blocks. She says she likes to go for a very long walk. And can you just guess roughly how long those walks could be? And when I was reading her bio, I was surprised to note that in 2022, she walked 600 kilometers in Spain. And just amazing. So Claire has received the 2022 Outstanding Contribution to Coaching Award from Henley Business School for being a coach, and a Points of Light Award from UK Prime Minister for being a human. In 2024, Claire won, the 3D coaching won gold and silver for Workforce and Wellbeing Awards. The Human Behind the Coach, her book won Specialist Business Book at the 2024 Business Book Awards. So the how the event is going to unfold is she's going to have a session, then there's going to be a short coaching call, and after that question and answer, and over to Claire for taking it forward.
Thank you, Sandeep. What a pleasure it is to be here with you today in India and around the world. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to Shankar for getting that organised. After that introduction, you probably think, my goodness, she's got all those awards. What a special person she is. I'm not. I'm an ordinary person who is a bit broken. As is every single coach, as is every single person that we work with. And I think sometimes we make coaching more special than it is. And we try and tick the boxes and fit the competencies and make it all do those amazing things. And then what happens is that we lose the flow, we lose the sense of conversation underneath the rules. I think rules are really important, but so do I think that flow is important, because all coaching really is, at its heart, for me, is a conversation between two people, which is mostly about one of us and that's not me, where they feel seen and heard and felt, and where they understand or feel something about their own situation at the end of the conversation that they didn't feel at the beginning. And that's all it is. And thousands and thousands and thousands of books have been written about coaching, which add all sorts of things onto that. And for some people, that's very life-giving and it makes you a better coach. And for other people, it just makes you more confused. So what happens is you're in a coaching conversation and you're talking to the person who's doing the work, and you've got next to you all those books that you've read about coaching and all those good questions that people say you should be asking. And instead of having the conversation with the person, you're now also having a conversation with all that information. And now we are much less present and much less able to be in that partnership conversation where somebody feels seen and heard and felt and gets new insights into their own stuff, because we're not looking, because we're paying attention to all the things that we know. So I wrote Simplifying Coaching in 2020, based out of a course that I'd been running since the beginning of the century. So I'd been running the course for 20 years, and I just copied and pasted the course and then turned it into a book. And what I hadn't really realized was that actually I'm not the only person who thinks it can't be that complicated. And the feedback from around the world has been extraordinary, because if you're an ICF coach, Simplifying Coaching and the principles there actually are they follow the principles of the ICF, but they just say them in a much simpler way. So let me introduce you to my view of coaching. Okay, so no PowerPoint, sorry if you like PowerPoint, but I have got your picture. This container here is the coaching conversation. We begin it in partnership. We work out what the work is. The ICF will call that establishing the coaching agreement. Then we do the work, and then we end in partnership. And this little thing here is the things that we do before we start doing the work. So one of the things that I have learned to do more and more over time is I don't call the thing that we do coaching anymore. Because if I say to somebody, so somebody's coming here this afternoon, and if I say to her, "Are you ready to start coaching now?" She'll go, "What?" Whereas if I say, "Shall we work out what's the work we're going to do this afternoon?" Two things happen. One is I'm speaking English, and it's much less special and therefore much easier for her to understand. And the second one is she's reminded once again that she's coming to do some work and not just have a conversation. So finding ways to open up the conversation with people so that we're doing work is a really, really important thing. So one of the things I think that underpins great coaching is partnership. It's us working in partnership so that you do some great work. And one of the things that I notice about partnership is how really excellent coaches become quite quickly on establishing partnership at the beginning of a conversation. So if you're an ICF coach, you'll know that that's called establishing the coaching agreement. In Claire speak, it's called working out what we're going to do today. But actually, the thing about partnership is that often we don't check in on the partnership through the whole conversation. So if we establish the coaching agreement now, we work out what's the work we're doing, and then off we go. If I don't check in with you, I am not in partnership with you anymore because I'm going my own way. So I need to be checking in with you through the whole conversation to make sure that it's useful. And my checking in needs to be about you and about the work. So it mustn't sound like, "Am I any good?" Now, I know you think, why is she saying that? I'm saying it because many coaches don't check in because they are afraid of saying, am I any good? We check in on the work. Is this useful? So I'm just asking myself that question right now. Is this useful? We've been going for 10, 11 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to pop in the chat box. What insights have you had so far since we started 11 minutes ago? So just pop in the chat insights that you've had so far. And we'll see what they are. Great. Coaching is partnership. Oh, lovely. ICF seems less overwhelming. Hooray. Somebody's saying nothing new. That's great because we've still got plenty of time to bring in some things that are new. So I will check in 10 minutes into a coaching conversation. And I'll say to the people that I'm coaching, what insights have you had so far today? And I love that some people will say, none. Because now we know that. So then my question is, so what do we need to do in the next 1 hour and 15 minutes so that you get some insights today? And in an hour, I will check in probably 15 or 20 times. Because if I don't check in, we're not working together. We're not working in partnership. We have to check in to be working in partnership. So the title of today's event is Keeping the Thinker at the Heart of Coaching. So that's my obsession with calling the people that we work with people. So I personally don't like the word client or coachee, because all that's happening in a coaching conversation is that I am facilitating the thinking of somebody else. I'm not better or special or different. And yet my role in this conversation is different because my role is to facilitate you to do some really good work. So in a training context like this, I like to call the person that we're working with the thinker because we hope that they're going to be thinking. And for me, I like actually to call them a person because I think that's the most respectful thing, because I'm a person, you're a person. We're just in a conversation. So the thinker is what you might conventionally, Guranath, call the client or the coachee. It's the person who is doing the thinking in this conversation. And often what happens is, and Guranath, that question is a great question, because often what happens in coaching is the coach does most of the thinking. While you are overthinking, they will let you. And when they let you do the overthinking, they won't be thinking so much because you are. So why would they? So to keep the thinker at the heart of coaching, we need to do less work so that they do more work. It's simple mathematics, I think. So I know there's an issue that we may well be being paid for this and we want to give value and all those things, but the value comes from the work that they do that has an impact on their life and their work. It's not about the work that I do. So for me, the question is, what's the least that I need to do as the coach in order that you feel heard and seen and felt and get new insights into your own stuff? And I don't need to do any more than that. So I may have, if you look, I've got hundreds of books here. Look at that, lots of books. That, I hope I can put that back. But actually, I don't need to do anything that's in any of those books unless it's useful. And I need to start with seeing how we get on with nearly nothing. Because if I go into a coaching conversation and you think I've got a plan, you will follow my plan. It's easier. So when I say at the beginning of training sessions, which I didn't do today, but I will now, I'm not really completely sure what we're going to do today. In fact, I don't have very many ideas at all. And that's because we're going to work it out on the way. And that would be true in every coaching conversation. So when my lady arrives this afternoon, well, she's not my lady, when the person arrives this afternoon, I don't know what we're going to do. It's not my conversation. I haven't done any preparation except the preparation that I've done for the last 35 years. Because that's enough. And for you, that might be the preparation you've done for the last 5 years. But, you know, we're all human beings. I'm guessing everybody here is an adult. So you've been doing it for at least 18 years, your prep. You may have been doing your prep for 20 years, for 30 years, for 40 years, for 50 years. That's the preparation that we bring to the coaching conversation. And then we work out together in partnership, what's the work that we're going to do today. So in a while, I will demonstrate a coaching conversation by having a real conversation with somebody. And I'd love you to think whether that will be you. This session is being recorded and it's going to go out on YouTube. If you're willing to have a conversation with me, you don't actually need to tell me what the thing is that you're bringing to think about. We can do some really good work without you disclosing very much at all about what's going on. So yeah, so just give it a go. So I've talked for long enough. Who's got questions at this stage? You can unmute and then we'll get some voices in the room that aren't just mine. You can either share an insight or you can share a question. Let's hear from 3 people. What insights have you had or what questions have you got so far?
Claire, let me help you here. I just want to repeat what I've typed out. I get your point about, going in with, if I were to paraphrase, with an empty mind or a blank mind.
Yes.
And let the topic reveal itself.
Yeah.
It was just a fine point on that approach, which is what I had typed out in the chat, which is...
I understand your question now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Go on.
No, so that was precisely what I wanted to get your nuanced answer, because I do have a situation where I will be repeat coaching somebody. And while I get it that, for the new session is going to be precisely what the client wants. But if there is going to be an expectation from the client that I should have had some memories of the previous session, then,
Great question.
We'll need to have that in memory, isn't it?
Or do we? Because actually, we want them to have memories of the previous session. Okay. So I think there are a number of things that come up for me as you say that, Guranath. One of them is coaching is future focused and optimistic. So we're going this way. So we hope that by the end of the conversation, they've moved forward and they know something at the end that they didn't know at the beginning.
Yep.
So one of the challenges is, how do we have flow across a series of coaching conversations without going backwards and saying, last time we did this? Because what's happening then is we're not moving into new work, we're moving into old work. So several things, Guranath, because it's a great question. One is we need to boundary the looking back, and boundary, the looking forward. So I might say to you, is there anything we need to talk about from last time before we start today? How long do we need for that? Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, let's take 5 minutes. But then I would also try and get them to face forwards in the recall. So I like to say, what insights have you had since we met last time? Not what have you done since we met last time? Because when we ask them, what have you done? They'll tell us. Yeah. They'll tell us, and they'll tell us, and they'll tell us. And then we weren't at the beginning. We're now further away from the beginning than we were when we started. So if you can ask it in a way that gets them to look at the learning rather than the activity, you will start the conversation with them thinking. Because one of the challenges of coaching is that we often start from a standing start. So we start from a very still place. So often as they're arriving in the session, they'll go, I'm really stuck with this. And then we go, I'm stuck now too, and I don't have a plan. And what happens is we can both get very stuck. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to get momentum. We want to get some movement in the way that we work together. And when I do the coaching demo, I'll talk about some of the ways to get momentum. Because one of them is not to say, what is your issue? Because if you say, what is your issue? Or what is your problem? They will tell you. They will go, this is my problem. It's a very big problem. And as I tell you about my problem, it's just getting bigger. And actually, it's even bigger than I thought it, and now it's enormous.
True.
If you say to them, what's the question about that you'd like us to think about, what happens?
It'll become sharp.
Yeah, and also they start thinking. They start thinking.
Yeah.
And when they start thinking, we're now in flow.
Got it.
So we can do really amazing coaching that ticks all of the ICF boxes, and we can get stuck.
True.
So what we want to do is we want to do really good coaching that ticks all the ICF boxes and not get stuck and move a bit. Yep. So asking questions that have movement in them rather than questions that stagnate us, that get us stuck, is a really useful thing.
So can I have a follow-up on that, Claire?
You can.
Did I hear you say, instead of asking them what's the problem, did I hear you say what's the question, right?
Yeah.
And if they were to ask you or tell you the question, then doesn't it kind of imply that you have to give them the answer?
No. What's your question?
All right. Okay. So that's the nuance there, right? Because
yeah. So there's, what we'll do is we'll do the demo, Guranath, and then I'll go back through some questions that establish the coaching agreement without them thinking they're asking a question. We give them the answer.
Cool. Thanks.
So one of the most important features for coaches is presence. Because whatever you say to me as the person who's come for coaching, I've got to be completely not bothered by it. And as we grow as coaches, first of all, look as though I don't think I've got to have the answer. So that's step one. Step two is really to know I don't need to have the answer. And step three is I haven't got the answer anyway. So really being able to step into that space of not knowing starts by pretending, because we all have to learn, right? But I don't, people in this room are in different stages of your journey. But actually, over time, when I'm sitting there, I go, well, I don't need the answer. I haven't got the answer, and I don't know what to say. Because we're going to work this out together. And that's where partnership comes from. Partnership is us together not you paying me to. And that really matters, I think.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Beautiful question, which when I understood it was a really great question. Thank you. Jissy, what's your question?
Hi, Claire. So you showed one picture where there was one small box kind of thing. Yeah. So sometimes, and in that stage, when we use the words like thinker or thinking partner, the problem sometimes becomes is like thinking is their problem. Overthinking or usually analytical people like mathematician, engineers, they don't care. Okay. So how do we deal with such situation?
I wouldn't tell them they were the thinker. They're just the person. They have a name.
Okay.
One of the things that I think that we can do a lot more in coaching is to move it away from a dialogue like this. So if you work online, it's very easy for coaching, Jissy, to become, I ask you a question, you give me the answer. I panic because I don't know what to say next. So I find another question and I ask you that and you give me the answer. That doesn't leave a lot of space to do the work. So one of the things that I often do with people when I'm coaching is to say, so why don't we look at it together? So that moves us away from, I ask you a question, you give me the answer. I ask you a better question, you give me the answer. You want an even better question and I don't know what it is, but I try and find one because I think that's what you want. Whereas actually I can say to you, particularly if you're a high functioning thinking person, I can say to you, Jissy, why don't we just step back a bit and look at this thing together?
Okay.
As you look at it, Jissy, what do you see? Can you see how that opens up the conversation? And it stops you telling me about it with a hidden expectation that I'm going to tell you the answer, because isn't that why you come for coaching? To actually talking about the thing in a different way. So for me, one of the difficult things about coaching is it looks like 100 other conversations. So it looks like the conversation with the doctor. It looks like the conversation with the therapist. It looks like the conversation with the organizational consultant. It looks like the conversation with the boss. So for me, I will be different simply in the way that I sit, in the way that I am, in order that there's more chance of us having a different kind of conversation. Because that means that you're more likely to do the thinking. So my preference is I'll often be on the side of the screen for coaching. Because what I'm doing when I'm here is I'm not being the news reader. This says, Claire Pedrick knows a lot of things. And if I wait long enough, she's going to tell me what they are. To actually having space and being slightly different in the way that we do the work. Because when we're being slightly different, we're more likely to be able to have a slightly different kind of conversation. Because they too are used to having the kinds of conversations that they have in the chair or the screen in which they're sitting. So this is going to be different and a bit unusual and odd for them too. How are we doing?
Thank you.
Great. Have you noticed, everyone, how many times I'm checking in? And I would be doing that in coaching in the same way that I'm doing that in every other way. So Snehal, I hope that's how you say your name. Hi. Can you just come off mute?
Sorry. Hi. Thank you so
Hi.
much. I think it's appreciate everything that you're saying right now. I think I'm stuck in a paradigm of the presenting agenda, the deeper agenda, and sort of these are words from the course that I've learned. And I think I'm always geared towards what are they presenting to me? For example, it could be a move to a new job, transition in a relationship. And I'm always looking to go to a place of a deeper agenda. What does this person truly want? And I think I'm so stuck in that paradigm. I just need some help to understand not how can I not be attached to an outcome? What is it that I need to do continuously so that I'm not attached to an outcome in these conversations?
What they say is the work is very rarely the work, but it is what they say is the work. So we have to respect that. But what's interesting is that as they arrive, they will probably be telling us many things. So they'll be telling us what the thing is, but they'll also be telling us that in a way. So often what happens in the first 5 minutes of a coaching conversation is that they present, I call it the mood. Let me just write that in the chat. So they kind of present the mood, how they show up. And often in service of doing an excellent coaching agreement, the coach will focus on establishing the agreement and won't pay attention to the mood. And the art is to notice the mood at the same time as establishing the agreement. So I don't call it establishing the agreement, because I think that means how many sessions and how often and how long, and it means what are we doing today. I call it right sizing, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the work for today the right size for today. So in that process, we will observe the mood, how they show up, as well as how they talk about it. And if we notice that, and I say, oh, as you're talking, your voice sounds a bit flat today, or as you're talking, I'm sensing a bit of emotion. So we're bringing in the mood as well as the list. Because what you're describing, Snehal, is moving from the list, here are the things I want to bring, to the deeper work. So that's one way of doing it. The other one is, and I find it embarrassing to say these things because I feel like I'm speaking into the coaching industry and saying what is so obvious. It just feels a bit embarrassing. But actually, I might say to the person, Snehal, if we went deeper, what would we be exploring? Because then you know if they don't want to go deeper. And if they do want to go deeper, you know which way to go. Because I think often we go, oh, no, we need to be deeper. Ask them. So if we went deeper, what would we do? Does that make sense to you? Fabulous. Great. Good. And that's all we need to do. It's so simple. Because I could give you 1,000 tools to go deeper. But if you use going deeper tools, you're leading. Because you're using going deeper tools. So you're leading. And if you're leading, they're following. And if they're following, they're not doing the work. They're following you. So keeping the thinker at the heart of coaching is about keeping the thinker doing the work, keeping the person that we're working with doing the work. And one of the things that I notice as coaches go from PCC, if the ICF is your tribe, to MCC, is that often the development is in that first 5 minutes of the conversation, where the coach is much more able to notice and bring into the conversation the mood as well as the list, and to really work with the thinker to work out what really is the work. And that might mean in a 1-hour coaching session, we're spending 25 minutes working out what the work is, but we're doing that together and it's for them. And as we're doing it, they're moving forwards. So it's not me going, well, I'm not going to be ready to do any work with you until you're really clear what it is. that's a stillness, but there's a movement that can be really, really useful. And often when coaches don't get MCC, it's almost always to do with that beginning bit. So the art is not to dive into the work, because that's leading to before we know what we're doing, but it's to open up what the work might be so that we get clear on what it is before we start doing it. Ajit.
Thank you so much, Claire. I did mention on the chat earlier about my insights. So coming to the question, what you shared about first 5 minutes, and that's the most key input that I'm taking away right now about moving from PCC or MCC. First 5 minutes checking in. So is it okay if we ask that question? Because at PCC, assessor markers, etc., that I've gone through, we do ask the question about feeling. How are you feeling right now? I'm trying to understand better what exactly you're suggesting in that first 5 minutes to check in. Is it about feeling, or is it about what is it that you would like to explore in this session and the outcome of it? Because I've had this struggle with myself at the ACC and the initial days of my coaching journey, that I used to get stuck more with the competencies and the markers and so on and so forth, and get stuck with the model like grower, etc. And the coaching sessions were becoming more of tick box, have I done this? Have I done this? And followed all the competencies. But I learned it over a period of time that it's not about just getting stuck with the competencies. So would like to get some more insights from you and a little precise tips, especially with MCC in mind. Thank you.
All in an hour and a half. So I've just popped in the chat some questions that they're not perfect at all. And I really encourage you not to use them literally, but those are the questions that I build the beginning of the conversation on, which is which bit of the whole of this thing are we focusing on today? Because what we want to do is we want to get to the heart of the work, if we can, right early on in doing it. And what often happens is when the beginning is weak, the work is too big. And when the work is too big, what happens is coaches and thinkers together will find out eventually what it is, but it will take a lot of the session. Whereas if you can work out much earlier what the heart of the work is, then you're able to go deeper and do better work. So these questions are in simplifying coaching, and I regret writing simplifying coaching when I hear coaches literally go through those things, because it's like a tick box. When you go to see the nurse and they go, have you had your vaccinations? How many times have you eaten in the last 3 days? They ask you those technical questions. The right sizing, the establishing the agreement can turn into that quite easily. And actually, it's a beautiful, soft beginning to a conversation where we're just gently working out what we're doing together, so that the work becomes this big rather than this big. So if people are wanting one best coaching question, here it is. When the person's brought a thing and it's huge, in my coaching session today, I want to find out about world peace. I want to restructure my organization. Which bit of that do we need to focus on in the 5 minutes that we've got? Which bit is a really amazing question, because it helps us get from working on something that is overwhelming to working on something that is much more the right size and which we can actually deal with. So for me, the beginning of the coaching conversation is constantly moving it so that we are sizing the work to a size that we can do together in this time. And that doesn't mean me saying to you, Rakesh or Ajit, for example, I don't say to you, we can't possibly deal with your very big problem in this very short time? Because that blows trust, right? You're going to go, well, I thought I wanted to do some work with you, and you just told me we can't. Or the coach says, that's too big for now. So what we'll do is we'll choose this bit. That's the coach leading. But what we just say is, great, you want to talk about restructuring the whole of the government of India. That's great. Which bit of that do we need to be focusing on in this 15 minutes? You want to take action as a result of the US election. So which bit of that do we want to think about in this 10 minutes? And how will you know that we've moved this forward a bit? One of the things that bothers me about coaching is that we get so obsessed with goals that we think we need to achieve the goal in the session. What we need to achieve in the session is a bit of forward movement. Because when people have moved forward a bit, they will continue to move forward a bit. So working with smaller bits of work and seeing movement is much more effective as a coaching strategy than trying to achieve a goal. We're trying to achieve a direction. That's a lot softer. So let's see it in action. So I would like to ask, are there 3 people who might be the person who would be willing to volunteer to be coached? And then I'll choose which one. If you want to either pop it in the chat or come on camera. If nobody decides to be coached, then we'll do something else. Jissy, is that a hand up?
Yeah, I can volunteer one.
Okay, so you're one. Let's have a couple of others, and then we'll choose which one is going to be the one that is going to demonstrate best. Who else? Everyone's going, I'm so pleased that Jissy's volunteered that I'm not going to, because then I can watch him. Okay, Jissy, it's you and me. So Rakesh and Ajit and Sandeep, if you can switch off your videos, that would be great. So Jissy, are you still happy for this to be recorded?
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Good, good. Some safety things. Everybody who's watching, when we talk about this afterwards, we're talking about what I did and what happened between Jissy and I. We're not talking about Jissy and we're not talking about your stuff. And if you know him, please don't talk to him about it again and don't talk to anybody else about it again. Just for safety purposes. So Jissy, what's your question for today?
So actually, there are 2 pressing issues with me. One is related to my health and another one is related to money. Just thinking which one to pick. Let me pick my health issues.
Okay. So we got 10 minutes. What's your question about the health question?
So I have hypothyroidism, and for the past, say, more than 10 years, I have tried whatever I knew, whoever help I could get, I got it, but it doesn't go away. So that's one failure I felt on my part. So I have achieved so many things because of coaching, but this one thing I could not achieve. So that makes me feel like a failure every day morning when I eat that pill.
So you've thought about it a lot for 10 years or more. And there are some things that can be moved, and there are some things that we don't have control over. So I guess my question, Jissy, is what do we need to do in this 10 minutes to move you into thinking that you haven't thought before?
I know there will be some way if I can find at least one more option which I can try, which has some chance of moving me out of that disease, then that will be a good thing.
Okay, so I'm not medical.
Yeah.
So we can talk here about how you do what you do, but we can't talk about medical solutions. Are we okay with that?
Yeah. I think it's not medical. Yeah. So I think it's something related to my belief. What stops? So where we want to the tiny bit where we want to focus today
Yeah.
is is body, as per my belief, is self-healing. So what stops me from self-healing is something which we want to explore.
Okay, what stops you from self-healing? So how will you know just doing a mathematical thing here, how will you know by 1/2 that we've moved that forward a bit? That question.
So just if I have at least one option,
One option.
yeah, that's good.
And how will you feel when we've done that?
Some positivity. So another journey starts. Okay, try that. Right now looks like I've exhausted almost all my options.
Okay, so some positivity. Great. What's the best way for us to look at this together?
What is the best way to look at it together? I don't know. I know. When I hear people, a coachee tell I don't know, then it's a bit difficult for the coach, but I really don't know.
Okay, you really don't know. So if we just step back and we look at you and we look at your health and we look at this question, which is what's that one thing? What do you see as you look at you and your health? I think my body is giving me some message by this disease. I don't know what that message is. That's what is coming up. Okay, so it's giving you a message.
Yeah.
Where is that message as you look?
The word which comes to my mind right now is tiredness. It's one of the symptoms of that disease.
So you're smiling.
You got it.
Has it got a message?
So what was coming up for me is what should I do when I'm tired?
Ah,
So one of the answer is do nothing.
huh?
So rest, do nothing, relax. I think that should be my focus.
Ah. I'm not hearing the energy that I heard a minute ago.
Yeah, there are responsibilities. Do
Ah,
nothing. Uh, mm, Office work, money.
yeah.
Money is one of my concern. If I don't do anything, then who'll pay the bills? Food on the plate. For some short duration, I can always do that.
Ah.
Hmm.
So what do you know now that you didn't know when we started?
So I think deep down some tiredness is there that needs to be handled. I still don't have the tools or I don't know how to do it, but
Hmm.
probably I'll figure it out.
Okay. So the tiredness needs to be handled. How's your positivity?
Yeah, mm, I know I know a little more now than I was earlier. So there is something or there is some direction in which I can start running. It might fail, but yeah. Positivity has come.
Is that enough positivity for now?
Yeah, I think we don't. I think we can't proceed. No, it's a small demo.
Have
Yeah,
you got what you need?
yeah, I think I'll pick it up from here. Thank you, Clara.
Okay, so you know what you're going to do.
Yeah, little bit at least. Yeah.
A little bit. Is a little bit enough for now?
Let's see. I'm just conscious of the time we have got.
We've got plenty of time. We've got 5 beautiful minutes if we need them.
Okay, let's see then. Um, so, Clara, so what we can explore is I'm not physically tired. My body is pretty okay. But I think somewhere deep down there is some kind of tiredness because of some thoughts. I don't know what tools I should use to get it out.
Okay. Get it out?
Yeah. Mm. the message is tiredness and I can't do anything about it. So I start feeling a little helpless about it.
Ah,
So that helplessness tires me.
ah. So, what's this?
So I have used some as tools like assertions on these kind of things. I'm helpless and all. But it has not gone away, at least thyroid issue.
So we were talking about the helplessness. What's
Yep.
one thing that you could do as we're moving towards a close to challenge your helplessness? What can you see, Jissy?
So from actionable steps, whenever I'm taking that pill, probably I should use some of the assertions which have been helpful earlier. One among that is I'm safe, I'm supported always. And now with so many things, I'm just wondering whether that pill is having a placebo effect or that's really working. I don't know. So maybe every day morning, while taking the pill, probably I can do this assertion. That is one thing I can do.
So how does that feel?
Yeah, one experiment worth trying.
Great. And is one experiment enough for now?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh my God, you finished a coaching conversation so soon. Hats off. Thank
And
you.
just finish that. What was surprising about it finishing so soon?
I actually, Claire, this is not the first time I'm getting coached on this subject. I've done it multiple times. This was so short and it is useful.
Useful. Great. Fabulous. Thank you so much. If you pop your postal address in an email to me, claire@3dcoaching.com, I'm happy to send you one of my books to say thank you.
Oh.
You can choose which one.
Oh, sure.
Check them out on Amazon and send me a message with your email address and I'll send you one of them to say thank you very much. So
Thank you.
we can all come back now to a dialogue. Thank you so much, Jissy. I really appreciate you stepping up. So my question to everybody, I think we'll stay together probably, but I'm really curious to know, what did you notice about the beginning, the middle, and the end? Myman, we'll come to your question a bit further on. It's a great question that you're the one you put in the chat, and we'll come to that. But we'll start with, what did you notice about the beginning? What did you notice about the way we co-created the work? Let's hear from 2 or 3 people. What did you see as we began?
Seems like you had all the time in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had probably the similar question that I think Memon Arif has asked about the aha and yeah, because I was also highlighted. I was told by someone that, and especially in the marketing, do not use these words as okay, aha, or yeah, because they might appear to be validating or agreeing to what the client is saying. So I would like to get your view on that.
So there are 3 phases to the conversation. There's the beginning. You're going to go, yeah. There's the beginning, the middle, and the end. So at the beginning, we're working out what we're doing. In the middle, they're trying to explore it. That's all the so all the way through, we're doing trust and rapport and presence and all those things. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the beginning, then we're trying to do the exploring, and then we're trying to move to action. So one of the things that really matters is that the sound and the movement are different from the beginning, the middle, the end. And often coaches use the same sound, but when we use the same sound, we keep them stuck. So if you only ever say, they'll have insights and they won't notice. So I was changing the sound when it seemed as though Jissy had had an insight. Because he wasn't listening to himself. So did you see the bit where he got quite animated? Yeah. He didn't know any of that had happened. So I need to make a short enough observation that's based on what I see, hear, and sense for him to notice what's just happened. And that's why I will make a noise. But I didn't say, aha. I went, ah. So it's short as possible. But one of the things that sorry, you've got this is Friday the 8th, last Friday. This is my learning. I think that not only is there a different sound for the beginning, the middle, and the end in order for it to flow, but I also think that we probably have a different look, a different movement. So there are times in the conversation when we're very still. And did you notice I stepped in at the end? And I stepped in to turn up the temperature to support him to work out what he was going to do next. Because if I'd stayed completely still and Jissy had stayed completely still, I could have accidentally kept him stuck. So I was using movement and he was moving and I was noticing what he was doing in order to have a bit of a sense of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And that's also true for the sound. So the ICF get very caught up in the words. But one of the things that distinguishes, one of the reasons that I wrote The Human Behind the Coach is that there's a distinctiveness between what you read in a transcript and what you hear on a recording. So the transcript can be fantastic, but the session can be quite average. And often that's the difference between an average session and a really powerful session is often the sound and the movement. And you can hear it even if you can't see it. So we need to avoid, I absolutely agree, okay. Because one of the things about okay is it does all sorts of things. So when I say to you, Ajit, okay, what I'm doing is I am taking the work and I am taking it to myself. So I go, okay. And then you'll wait for me to say the next thing. So what I want to do is I want to make offers. So I want to keep giving the work back to you. What did you see? And that will show in the sound as we offer, the sound of the offer, but we accidentally hold the work. So if I ask a question and it sounds like a statement, so if I said to Jissy, you're tired, can you hear that's a statement? You're tired. Claire Pedrick thinks I'm tired. Whereas if I go, you're tired, that's an offer. So the sound of the question really, really, really matters. Yes, Maimon, I did sometimes mirror Jiss's gestures, and one of them was a complete waste of time because he didn't look. And by the time he did look, it was a bit odd because it was ages from when he did that to when he opened his eyes and saw it. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a useful thing. It was there. If he'd opened his eyes, he'd have seen it, but he didn't. And so, like all good questions, that went into the bin, into the trash. And did you see I made it disappear without making it really go, pooh! And he goes, what is happening there? So I just had to slightly lose it. But sometimes that is the best question, whatever it is they've just done, because that has more meaning to them. And sometimes we make the gesture and it was completely without any value. So we just get rid of it. But it was available if he had chosen to use it, which he didn't.
Thank you so much. It is so nuanced. I'd probably have to watch the recording once again to really go to that, very keen and micro observations. Thank you.
I really want to encourage you to watch your own recordings. And I know that if you're doing ICF coaching, you'll be submitting audio, but your learning is video. And if you're going to learn from video, what you need to be doing is you need to be recording it gallery view so that you can see the thinker and you can see yourself. And question one is, are you in partnership? Are you passing it over? We should be able to see the conversation moving across the screen. And we should see you absolutely waiting and being completely still until they give it back to you. And that can really, really improve your coaching without paying for a mentor or a supervisor or anyone else. And if you don't want to do it for yourself, if you look on YouTube and look for coaching demos, you can watch to see if it's happening or not. And most of the time you'll notice it isn't. But that partnership, you can see partnership in the handing over. So let's hear from others. Yes, Mammon.
I noticed when GC was very silent, your eye movement and the way you hold yourself, like there was a bit of an expectation.
Say more about the bit of an expectation.
Your eyes, your facial movement, and the way you hold your hand, you're like, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
That,
I stopped moving.
yeah, I saw you freeze. I'm
Yeah.
waiting. So
Yeah. So what happened was, Jesse was talking to me, and then he left, and he went to talk to himself. So I was waiting for him to come back. But in order to enable him to completely and fully talk to himself, I had to stay exactly where I was. Because if I had moved, he would have thought I was about to speak. And if he thought I was about to speak, he would have stopped thinking and he would have come to me for the next thing. So I had to freeze. And I was watching his eyes until he opened them. And that's very nuanced too. But actually what happens is if our job is to facilitate them to think, when they're thinking, we have to stop. And we have to wait until they come back. Yeah, so that's why I was stuck in the middle of the air. because he was busy. And I just had to, Jissy was busy. What else did you notice, lovely people?
Claire, yeah, Alivi here.
Yeah, hi.
I was amazed at the way you held the silence, and gave that much time. And I was wondering, how would one manage the chatter in the head? Because it was going on in my head to say that, will it be now? Will it be now? Because there's always a factor of time.
There's always enough time.
Yeah, I realized that towards the end.
There's always enough time. So it's just a question of waiting until they come back. And absolutely trusting. And did you notice I started talking about the end time from quite close to the middle? Because that also enables the time to be the right size. So we've got to talk about time at the end. So one of the things I notice a lot of coaches don't do is talk about time, because it's rude and it can be culturally rude to talk about time. But the better you are at being present, the more you have to talk about time. Because I don't know whether, Pallavi, in my coaching session with you, whether we've got another half an hour or another 2 hours, because I'm so loving being in the space with you. And then when you go, oh, we've run out of time, I go, have we? I had no idea. So we have to let them know where we are, because otherwise they're not going to move from the right sizing to the exploring to the action, because they'll happily stay wafting around in the exploring with you. Then you go, we've run out of time. And instead of the ending being done in partnership, the coach leads the end. So one of the competencies that is least seen, I think, in PCC coaches is ending the conversation in partnership. If we're going to end in partnership, I don't end it. I don't decide it's over. I check in and we work it out together. Rakesh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, the way you said, instead of saying 4 minutes, you said 5 more beautiful moments, minutes or whatever. I mean, that was a really, good one actually. I really loved it. I mean,
Because
I just, because it really make a huge difference, rather saying only 5 minutes to go or 5 minutes are
Yeah.
left, very dull kind of a thing. And when you say five beautiful moments, I think it really makes huge difference. I really loved. I just wanted to, speak it out, and it was really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Because if I say we've only got 5 minutes left, the person goes, well, that's not enough time to do anything. And then we just stop. So I kept the session open, Aaron, because it felt like Jissy was trying to close it because he thought we were running out of time. So I was trying to invite him that there was still space to do a little bit more thinking. So I could see that he hadn't quite arrived. So the thing about Jissy, I really appreciated the way that you thought, Jissy. What I appreciated most about you was that you went, I'm busy, Claire, you just wait and I'll be back. And that made the timing really, really easy, actually, because when somebody tells you they're busy, it's a wonderful thing. And then we just wait. And what we need to remember is when we come back, wherever we were when we went into that thinking, that's not where you are now. So I need to check in, because when somebody does that and they disappear, they are doing some really good stuff. So when they come back, I need to check in. So where are we? What do we need to do now? Vanita, hi.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for a wonderful session, Claire. What I really am appreciating is the use of silence in this entire experience. And the second thing I really appreciate is that you have taken coaching into a far more deeper level with focusing on the nuances of coaching and a conversation
Thank
or
you.
partnership. Like you say, that paying attention to details. And details is, when you're sewing, okay, even one stitch should not be here and there. It should fall into place. So I was feeling that. And
Thank
I
you.
wish I can see more of your recordings. There is so much to learn from you. And I'm genuinely saying this.
Thank you.
And I loved it. I just love the detailing. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. We do coaching demos quite often online that are live in a protected space. So we don't share the recordings, but you can check those out. I love what you said about sewing, because for me, coaching is about sewing. So the stitch
Wow.
comes up. If you can't sew, just follow me. The stitch comes up. All that's happened here has happened underneath the fabric. We pull the thread and then we go back in, and we go back in a little bit further forward, and then some stuff happens underneath, it comes back up, and then it goes back in, it's a little bit further forward. So that hidden stuff is the thing that's moving it forward. Just want to build on something you said, Vanita, about silence. The learning journey about silence for coaches is that we have to be silent in the silence. So often as we're beginning to learn coaching, in the silence, we're going, what did they say? What could we do now? What am I going to do? Did I buy any milk? All of those things. Whereas until we can learn to be silent in the silence doesn't have its full value for them. Because they will sense that we're busy.
Yeah.
And the
I think
silence
you
won't
were
be deep.
Yeah, sorry. I think what you were mentioning, it's not about question, answer. And I think that was a beautiful demonstration that it's about partnership. I think that's what I heard.
And do you know what it is
Thank you.
about?
Sorry?
Do you know what it is about? It's about answer question, answer question. So each question builds out of what the thinker just said. So when we do question answer, it's like this. I ask you a question, you give me the answer. I ask you the next question, you give me the answer. I ask the next question. Whereas building the question out of the answer means that we're traveling with them on this journey. And that means that they're moving forward. So let me see if I can demonstrate this to you. You know, often in the coaching conversation, we find the thing. Here's the thing. Let me find something brighter. Here's the thing. This is the thing that we really, really need to work on today. They've kind of named the thing. We've sort of seen the thing. But what happens is we then think of a question that sounds beautiful, that asks about the thing. But when we do that, our question is here. So it's not quite where the thing was. We're now in a slightly different place. And then what happens is they answer the question that we just asked them that wasn't quite the thing. But the answer that they give us is over here. So now we've slipped. We've slipped from the work, because the work was, I can't remember. It's too many things. The work was here, but now the conversation is here. And then we build on that, and then we're somewhere else. And we've lost the real heart of the work. So the less we do, the more able we are to stay with the heart of the work.
Got it. Wow, very well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's a channel on YouTube, on 3D Coaching's YouTube, called Quick Coaching Tips. And there's a 60-second video of that and loads of other stuff if you want to have a look.
Sure. Thank you very much.
So we have 9 beautiful minutes left. That was for you, Rakesh. So my question to you is, let's just hear from some people. What do you know now that you didn't know when we started? So do pop off mute and put your video on. Shankar, what do you know now that you didn't know when we started?
I didn't know about it, but you demonstrated it in such a beautiful way, the use of space. When you started the question, here you are, here it is, and here is this question. So you kind of created the distance between the thing and the person. And I think that's something I'm learning, Claire.
Great. The other thing, did you notice that I said you've probably been thinking about this for 10 years?
For 10
so
years.
What do we need to do differently today so that we move your thinking forward? Because often what happens is they say, I've talked about this with 20 coaches, and we go, oh no. Oh no, he's talked about it with 20 coaches. How can I do anything here that's different from the 20 coaches? And what we've done is we've put the worry in our pocket. But what we need to do is we need to name that before it starts going in our pocket and going bang, bang, bang. And then all we can hear is, oh no, what are they going to say about me? So naming the thing is really, really useful. What to do when rapport building doesn't seem to go in the right direction? I would name it. I'd name it really early. Seems like we haven't quite got rapport here. What do we need to do? Because it's not like they're not thinking the same thing. Oh, thank you, Rajesh. Infectious energy. Who else wants to share? What do you know now that you didn't know at the beginning? Snap on. Have you got something to say?
Yeah, I would like to just say one thing, that I loved your screen stage presence.
Cue.
In fact, 2 days earlier, I also started that. Instead of sitting on the chair and the table, I also started doing like this. And I found you now. And my experience, it was in training sessions, my energy went 4x.
Yeah.
4x.
Yeah.
Not a dull moment.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a lot of difference. So I love that. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. There's some great questions. Vanita, what do you do when in the opening dialogue they bring multiple areas to focus on?
Yeah,
I say,
so,
that's
where
a lot
to
of things.
focus on?
That's a lot of things. As you look at all of those, which of those do we need to focus on together today? Or what's the thing that connects them? Or what's the question that connects them? But I get them to choose. But I will actually put them out. Because if I put them out, you know that they're kind of safely looked after. And you're not going to keep over explaining to me. And sometimes if somebody says, there's this huge thing, but that's not the thing I want to talk about. I say, have you got something huge? Why don't you just put the huge thing down? And I'll do it as well. Just put the huge thing down. Now you've put that down, what do we need to focus on? So using movement is really useful. Blacksmith, great question. There are people who talk a lot for almost 15 minutes rattling, and I get confused. Any suggestions? That's such a good question. Question 1, are they confused? They might be, they probably are. There are 3 interrupting questions that are super useful for coaches. So the ICF say that we can interrupt with a coaching purpose. And often the person will have fallen off the rails. We've worked out what the work is. And then, so we work out what the work is at the beginning of the conversation, off we go. And then they go, all this stuff. And then we get lost in it again. There are 3 things that bring them back. One is they're talking about everybody else in the rest of the world and not about themselves. So we can say, and you? One is that they're talking about the whole of future history and not about the work today. So we can say, so today. And one is, we have no idea what we're doing anymore. And then we can say, so your question now is? When I'm working with native English speakers, I start those interventions with so, because so isn't a hard sound, it's a soft sound. So often we interrupt with a hard sound and we go, can I interrupt? At the beginning, you said you wanted to do this and we're not doing that anymore, you very bad person. And we lose trust, we get ourselves into all sorts of difficulties. But actually, what we want to try and do is to be future focused when we interrupt. So today, so your question, and you, and I start with so, because I can start making the noise while they're still talking. And it doesn't feel like they're cutting across, they're being cut across. So today, but only if they're clearly not thinking while they're doing it, because they might be doing some really good work. So check that out first. It's 28, it's 2 minutes too. I love working in India, but it is challenging with the clock. It's 2 minutes too. So I think that's probably time to wrap up. I've popped a gift in the chat somewhere for you if you want to join the supervision community, which has got loads of videos in it and loads of chat. That gives you a month's free access if you want to have a look. And thank you for coming, and happy to connect on LinkedIn. Back to you, Sandeep.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Claire. It was great to have you, and being so generous with the, I'll say, so much you gave back to everybody. Thank you very much. It was great to have you. And yeah, we'll close the session.